For letter T, I want to look at a tree. Specifically, that famous tree from the Garden of Eden that Genesis calls the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Because this knowledge of good and evil, I kind of recently discovered something that I think that means a bit different than what at least I've always been taught or understood. Because if we take it at face value in the like a 21st century American reading of knowledge of good and evil, it sounds like this thing is what opened our eyes to realizing, like, oh my goodness, there is good and there is evil. I had no idea. I thought everything just was. And I really don't think that's what it is. I don't think that was the great thing that the serpent's coming saying, oh, you'll be like God and you'll know that there's both good and evil. Right now you think there's only such thing as good. I don't think that's what was going on. If you look at that word knowledge in the Hebrew, I can't pronounce it, but it also has a connotation of discernment. And I think that's more what this is talking about, that it's the judgment between good and evil. And it's not like God wanted us to not be able to tell the difference, but God wanted us to let Him decide what's good and what's evil. And like this fruit, this knowledge of good and evil, the thing that the serpent, which we understand that Satan wanted to happen, is that we kind of take that onto ourselves and say, we're going to discern what's good and what's evil. And now we think we can tell the difference, and we think that what we decide is good should be good, and what we decide is bad should be bad. And this is how you end up with so many things, like practically accusing God, saying like, oh, well, how could a loving God allow this to happen, and all these things, and this is good, surely God should be behind this, like, look at all the good we're doing, God, how could God accuse me when I do this much good? And these kind of things that we think we get to decide what is good and what is evil. And that's what was never supposed to be. God is the one who makes that call. And God is the only one who sees all of the details, all of the variables. He sees the true big picture in the long context. That He knows the thing that it's like, there's this one event that we can see such a tiny little snapshot of, and He sees how that is going to play out in 1,000 lives for 1,000 years. And like, there's so much to it that we can't see to be able to determine, like, is this one little isolated thing good or evil? And I could give hypotheticals in there, like, is it good to cut a person open? And it's like, you might say no, but then what about a surgeon who's cutting a person open to do something? Like, when you have a broader picture, things look different than they do when you've got tunnel vision on it. And I think that's what it was supposed to be. It reminds me so much of being a parent, especially with like a young 2 to 3 year old, with a toddler, that there's a lot of things that they might not like. When you're trying to make a kid eat their vegetables and they're like, no, I don't want it, and they don't think that's good, they think this is bad, but the adult knows this is good food for you, you need to eat this. I'm declaring it good, it is good, this is for you. Or there's things that it's like, I'm saying, no, it's bad, you cannot pet that dog, he's not wanting to play with you, trust me on this. And like, sometimes we can't see what He can. Because I really think that as far as like spiritual growth, we never actually progress past like the toddler stage. The New Testament talks about, there's some place that it says we start out, we're craving pure milk. When the brand new beginning. And then later it's like, oh, well, you should be up to eating solid food by now. And the highest level I think I ever see it get to is just talking about like, you're at the point where you can walk and even run. And that's a toddler. That's your 3-year-old. And the problem is we think that we get to being like this mature and wise and we know things and we can discern and we're really serving a purpose. It's like, no, you're still a toddler. Because God is the parent. And like, if God is the definition of maturity, none of us are getting anywhere close. And we're just this toddler who's, can most of the time run without falling on our face, but still do sometimes. That's the level that we're really at. And He's the one who's making the important decisions. He says what is good, what is bad. It's his discernment of good and evil. And the problem that has been since the very beginning and still to this day is when we think we can make that call. And it comes down to, maybe the word for T should really be trust, because that's what it needs to be. He makes the call, we let him, because we know that he wants the best for us, and we know that he knows more than we do. And so trust him.